Alright, after several requests, I decided to go ahead and do a reassembly video. I apologize about not doing one before. I didn't think it would be that big of an issue, but apparently some people were having a little bit of trouble figuring out how to get it back together. And that's not a problem. I mean, these things are pretty involving. It can be a little tricky. What you're looking at here is my board with some thermal compound on it. I'm using a different type of thermal compound than what I used in the other video, so that's why it looks a little bit different. I'm not actually going to spread this like I spread the other. Different types of thermal compound require different application methods. What I'm using now is Arctic Silver 5. A lot of people have actually asked me what to use, where to get it. I actually got this at Radio Shack. It's a little more expensive than some. It's about $10, but it is supposed to be the best. I don't know how well you can see that, but just go to Radio Shack and ask for Arctic Silver 5 thermal compound, and they'll be able to step you in the right direction. First thing we want to do is we want to put the outer casing back on. I'm going to do this upside down so these rubber pads don't fall off. I've had these pads fall off from time to time, so this will be upside down from what most people will probably do it. Just be careful you don't get your thermal compound all over the carpet or whatever you're doing it on. Oh, and I've had several people comment about me doing this on the carpet and how it's a bad idea. And I agree, it is a bad idea, but I'm not too worried about it. I'm not dealing with any raw components off the board. Everything should be fine. However, having said that, I don't encourage it, but also I'm not too concerned about it. I'm in kind of a small apartment, so I don't have much room. That's why I'm doing it on the floor. But anyway, these little tabs, make sure they fit in just right, and that should close up like so. And there are two screws that hold this together, and these screws are just a little bit smaller than the others, so you may have to use a smaller screwdriver. Then after we've done that, you can put the heatsink back on. What I normally do is I'll start one side, and before I get that tight, I'll go ahead and press down on this and start the other side, because these are spring loaded, so sometimes they can give you trouble. But once you get both sides started, it's not that big of a deal. Alright, next we'll put the hard drive caddy screws in. These will be the smallest screws you have. Just go in like so. Next we'll put the fan back in. Make sure you get this lined up right, because there is a tab and a notch that will only go in one way. If you got it in the wrong way, that tab won't be locked in place. There are 3 screws. Then we're going to plug the fan in. And this fan, there is a little clip right there the wires go in. And we'll just plug that in. And also, while you're doing that, don't forget to plug the battery in. This is what keeps your memory for the date and time and all your user settings. And next we'll put the back piece on. Then next what we'll do, we'll take the bottom half and we'll drop the motherboard into the case. Like so. And there will be one longer screw These are the screws that go in. This is the longer one, and this is one of the short ones. There should be a total of 5 short ones and 1 long one. The long one goes back by the power. Again, just look for the arrows. They have arrows marked where the screws go. Alright, next thing we're going to do is put the power supply in place. Before you put the power supply in place, you want to put the screw with the washer on it and connect the ground first. You want to make sure these wires are routed so that they clear the power supply. They kind of fit like this. Well, actually not they, just the ground wire. The power supply only goes one direction. You'll notice these little holes right here. That's where the motherboard actually plugs into the power supply. There are the pins for that. And don't forget to plug these back in and tuck those wires. These particular wires get tucked behind, or actually underneath this piece of plastic. Otherwise the case won't close properly. And don't forget to plug this back in. Make sure it's plugged in all the way. And the next thing we're going to do is hook up the Wi-Fi Bluetooth daughterboard. Now, I've had a lot of people PM me and also asking in the comments section about not having Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, not being able to connect to the internet wirelessly, or their controllers not being able to connect to the PS3 itself unless it's plugged in via USB. Now, 99% of the time, what is wrong is people forget to plug this ribbon cable in. This ribbon cable actually plugs into the board right there, and it's kind of easy to forget because it's underneath of everything. But what you need to do is plug that in, and don't forget to lock the lock. Just slide that little brown tab down, and there's a little notch here. If you have trouble getting this in place, there's a little notch right there. This board actually has to slide in from the side just a little bit, otherwise it won't go in. And the same with the antenna itself. And then also there's another ribbon cable right here. I can get a closer shot of that for you. Right there. Make sure you plug that in and lock it in place. There are 4 screws here. The next thing we'll do is put the power and eject switch back in. It sits on that bracket. I usually put it in as one piece. And don't forget to plug that ribbon cable back in also. Then there are 4 screws. 2 for the bracket, 2 for the switch itself. Next, we're going to put the Blu-ray drive in. This can be a little tricky because the ribbon cable is under the board. And And what you want to do before you even start, you want to make sure this lock is flipped up. Otherwise you're not going to be able to get that cable plugged in. And you want to be very careful with these locks, because I've had a lot of people comment and say that they actually broke the locks. And if you can't get these cables to lock in place, it's probably not going to work ever again, unless you can get that lock fixed. Alright, now that that's in, we'll simply lay it down. Then don't forget to plug the power source in, which is up front. And also on this, there's another little latch there that wire slides under. It's probably not that big of a deal, but it may give you trouble putting the case back together if you don't have it in place. Next, we're going to put the top plate on. This can be a little tricky if you have a 60 gig or a backwards compatible 80 gig, because you have the memory card readers, and don't forget to hook that back up. I usually twist it like so, and you can usually get it to go in without too much trouble. Make sure it's in all the way. Lock the clasp. And there are some notches here that the case lines up with, and you just simply hinge it. And with the top screws, you have 7 plastic screws. They're all the same length except for one. The shorter one goes in the back where the plastic is the thinnest. Go ahead and put that one in now so we don't get it mixed up with the other ones. And there are also 2 metal threaded screws. Those go right here, there, and there. Those can actually be tricky to put in. We'll put those in a minute after I get the rest of the plastic threaded screws in. Those metal threaded screws can be a little tricky, so what I usually do, sometimes I'll either just hold the screwdriver like this and flip the board upside down, or if you're lucky, sometimes you can actually sandwich the screw against the plastic and slide it down like that. Very top cover over the plate. Now there's this little, it serves as a nut, but not in a traditional way. This actually fits in here, because most likely it fell out whenever you took it apart. This goes in here like this, and that's what actually holds the top on. And this screw can also be a little tricky to get in place. What I usually do, I'll actually take the screw and set it in place before I even attempt to put it on, and I'll turn the PS3 sideways. Slide that down, but not quite all the way. Get your Torx head in there and start pushing. That will slide it the rest of the way in place without pushing the screw out of the hole. Then put our little rubber foot back on, slide the hard drive in, put the infamous blue screw back in, and put the hard drive cover back on. Job complete. You might want to wipe the fingerprints off of it because it does get pretty dirty doing this. But there you go. Reassembly process. Sorry it took me a year to get it to you. Good luck, guys.